launch conductor in mission control. We pause at this moment in our countdown to remember and honor the lives of each of the participants on the Celestis Memorial Spaceflight. Their presence on this flight signifies a commitment to the opening of the space frontier shared by all of us. We wish the friends and families present today and all those who are with us in spirit all over the world Godspeed, good luck, and our thanks for allowing us to share this very personal time with you today. LCL. 5 vehicles armed, 3, 2, 1, fire. Missile away.
Hi, good evening, and welcome to our Celestis Memorial Spaceflight monthly briefing. My name is Mark, and I am an ambassador with Celestis Memorial Spaceflight, and along with my boss and a special guest today, we'll be giving you guys a lot of information of our upcoming flight. We're going to focus more on the Horizon flight that's our next flight that's upcoming, and give you any information. I'd like to inform the audience that is watching both on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page that if you are participating in our chat room, you are able to type in, ask any question that you may have about Celestis and our mission carrier, who we'll introduce to you later on. And we have a team of question answerers who will handle any questions you may have. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to someone who is very dear to me and Celestis, and he is the CEO, my boss, Charles Chafer. Hey, Charles, how you doing?
Hi, Mark. Doing well here in Houston, and how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Of course, for those that don't know, I am stationed in Orlando, Florida, and not in Houston, where Charles is right now. And it seems that we're all having all kinds of climate change activity, as well as our special guest this evening, all over this country. So right now, I'm dealing with hurricanes. Charles, you're getting close to probably maybe getting some remnants of one of 5 hurricanes that are ready to slash us to bits. And our special guest will tell you a little bit about where he's from and what he has to deal with. So Charles, go ahead and give us a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. And once again, if there's anyone who is watching this special broadcast today, want to go ahead and ask any questions, please do so. We are ready and willing to ask anything you may have. Take it away, Charles.
Thanks, Mark. And as usual, what I'll do is give everybody a brief update on all of our forthcoming missions. As Mark mentioned, tonight we're fortunate to be able to speak with our mission service provider for the coming Horizon flight. And I'll talk a little bit about that and before we get to Jeff. And let me say that we have 5 missions scheduled over the next couple of years, which will be number 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 for us. Number 17, I'll put at the last, which is a Horizon flight. So focusing on our forthcoming Earthrise mission called Aurora, which is scheduled for spring of 2021. Not a lot of news there. We'll be hoping that Spaceport America in New Mexico has reopened. It has not been operating due to COVID for the last several months, but there's talk of a Virgin Galactic flight later this year, which will require Spaceport America to be open. And so assuming that happens, then we're still on track with Up Aerospace to launch our Earthrise service in the spring of next year. Reservations are still open to that. For that, I expect them to remain open at least through March of next year. And we always enjoy going out to the world's first purposely built commercial spaceport. And it's really quite amazing to see what $250 million dropped on the New Mexico desert looks like. So when time comes for that mission, all of you who are signed up for it, we'll hope that we'll be able to host you for that mission. In the third quarter of next year, 2021, we're scheduled, as most of you know who were with us at a last YouTube Live event, we're scheduled for our second lunar mission, which is called Luna 02. And I'll reveal tonight that it got another name, and it's called Peregrine, which is after the name of the lander that we're flying on, that Astrobotic of Pittsburgh is launching. That mission will be very excited. We're going to the moon. As I say, that'll be third quarter next year on a Vulcan Centaur rocket out of Cape Canaveral. Again, hopefully by then we'll be able to host all of you for that launch. And I'll say that we're closing the reservations for Luna 02 November 1 or at sellout. And yes, we expect this one will be sold out. We have, as of today, about 5 remaining reservations available for that mission, which will, as I say, be our second time going to the moon. Then probably in Q3 2022, maybe slipping into Q4 2022, will be our Earth orbit mission after Horizon called Excelsior. We'll give you more information about that mission in October. And then in Q4, our first Voyager deep space mission, and we'll also provide more information on that mission coming down the road. So we've got a busy manifest. And now I'd like to turn to our Horizon flight, which has been scheduled for no earlier than December of this year, 2020, from Cape Canaveral on a Sherpa carrier provided to us by Spaceflight Industries, which will launch on top of a Falcon 9 rocket. And we're going to have some decisions to make for those of you who have tuned in who are on that flight or who have loved ones on that flight. And that has to do with your participation in that flight given the COVID-19 pandemic. And you all will be receiving a letter from us probably tomorrow that outlines everything that I'm about to say and asks you to make a choice. But the bottom line is that unless the world changes dramatically, it's likely we will not be in a position to do our standard 3-day event in Cape Canaveral and invite everybody to come in and participate in large crowd missions. Hope I'm wrong. Hope that changes. But we're planning as though that may not be the case. And I think that's prudent. And so for that reason, what I expect will happen, and don't hold me to any of this because everything is subject to change. I expect that it will be possible to view the launch from the beach or from other areas as long as you stay socially distanced. In Florida, I know that SpaceX is continuing to churn out missions on a regular basis, and I know that people go stand on the beach and watch it, and it's a pretty neat experience. So in the event that you are planning to attend the Horizon flight, you may well be able to do that. I would expect that that will happen. What's likely not to happen will be tours of the Cape Canaveral facilities, dinners and receptions where we have hundreds of people. At the last mission that we hosted in Florida, we had about 650 guests. And that may be a push. That may be difficult to do in December. So you need to be aware of all, you all have probably all figured that out yourselves. And you need to be aware that there may be limited opportunities for our standard 3-day celebration. What that means is the following. You're going to have some choices. Now, I will say that about 2/3 of you don't attend the launch regardless. Typically, about 1/3 of our clients attend the launch. So for you who aren't attending the launch, our standard is that we provide multiple webcasts of events. And certainly the launch will be covered live. We'll do a remote memorial service, virtual memorial service. And we're planning some other special events around our webcasting capabilities. I will note that we've had launches from as far away as the Canary Islands and Kwajalein Atoll in the South Pacific, and we didn't have many guests at those launches, but we were able to provide, I think, a very compelling closure for people seeing the launch and being part of the launch activities. So that will be available. We'll make that happen sort of regardless of what attendance options are. But we've also heard from several of you recently, hey, what's going on? We'd like to come to the launch, give us an update. So I've just given you an update on what we think is our best guess of what we'll be able to provide for Horizon. Again, subject to change. And I know many of you want to have asked, well, can I go on a later mission? And the answer is yes. We will make that available to you, even though we've already invested fairly substantially in this mission. We will, as you'll see in the letter, if you tell us by October 5th that you want to move from Horizon to Excelsior, which is our next launch, scheduled in Q3 or Q4 of 2022, we'll let you do that. Won't be any cost, and hopefully by then the health effects of COVID will be sufficiently assuaged that we can do our normal presentation and launch events and all of those things. So your first choice is, I want to stay on Horizon. Your second choice is, I want to move to Excelsior, and I understand that it'll be no earlier than 2 years out, and I'm willing to do that. We'll move you. The third option is either if you can't decide yet and you want to postpone after October 5th. And the reason for October 5th is that the next week after that, we need to deliver our payload to Spaceflight Industries. So once you're on, I can't pull you off. So that's why you have to decide by October 5th. If you decide, however, after October 5th, or if you say, I want to go on both missions, I want to go on Horizon and on Excelsior, we'll give you that opportunity, which is essentially a second launch. And that one we'll have to ask you to pay, not full price. It's $1,995, which is less than half the price of the service. But then you can go twice, and or you can pull out after October 5th, which functionally means you'll fly twice, because as I've said, we won't be able to pull any payload back after that. So I hope I've sufficiently obfuscated everything. And if you're confused, you will get a letter outlining all of these, or an email, pardon me, outlining all of these choices, and you'll be able to do that. And of course, we're always here not quite 24/7, but functionally, to answer any questions or to go through the options that you may have. Sorry about it. COVID is COVID, and nobody wants to risk their health in traveling or being in a difficult spot. So that's really what I wanted to say tonight about options on the Horizon flight. I suspect we'll get some questions, and certainly we'll be happy to answer them as best I can. And then I'll say once again that this is our, 90-day out forecast. And again, it's also possible, and I think, I won't say likely, but highly possible, that the launch might slip a month or so. And we all know that, those of us who've been through launches, you launch when you're ready. And a whole lot of things got to be ready in order for launches to occur. But we will be there. We will be supportive. We will put on I think, a wonderful webcast for you, or you'll have an opportunity to go on our next orbital flight if you have that choice. So with that, Mark, I think I'll stop there and bring on our guests, who we're very excited to have tonight. Very pleased that Jeff Roberts, who is the Senior Mission Manager for Spaceflight Industries, is joining us. Jeff is a West Point grad, a military man, a family man, and someone who has a very important role at Spaceflight Industries. And if you don't know about Spaceflight Industries, I'm sure he'll tell you about it, but it's a very interesting company that was formed to essentially provide opportunities for those of us who aren't able to completely fill a rocket by ourselves. And there's a lot of us these days. I think business is probably booming for spaceflight. Used to be called secondary payload. Sometimes we're even a tertiary payload. But with the move toward miniaturization of satellite technologies, the growth in satellite fleets, if you will, of in some cases thousands of small satellites, and the expansion of rideshare, it's called, opportunities by the primary launch carriers, a very significant niche emerged, and spaceflight was really a pioneer in leading that. Jeff had the, I want to say pleasure, but I imagine it was the hair-pulling incidents of launching. I can't remember how many, Jeff will tell us, but spaceflight bought an entire Falcon 9 and filled it up with a bunch of satellites. And wow. If you can imagine how difficult it must be to coordinate all these little experimenters and educational organizations, each individual company, everybody had to get there on time. And it was Jeff's job to make sure they all fit and flew. So with that, I'll welcome Jeff, and we'll hear from him a little bit.
Hi, Jeff. Oops, wait a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Charles, and thank you, Mark, for the opportunity to come and be with you today, as well as all your customers. This is a great experience for us, and we really appreciate the trust that you've put in us in order to take your customers to orbit. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about spaceflight. As Charles said, we're a rideshare coordinator, so very, very similar to like Uber. We don't often buy the vehicle, but we arrange for everyone to come on and go to the same destination together. The mission that Charles was talking about that we did about 2 years ago had 64 satellites on one Falcon 9 from 53 organizations in 17 countries. So it was quite challenging. I'm surprised I have any hair left after that mission, but it was also a great success. And that kind of paved the way for the mission that you're about to embark on with us on the Horizon flight. So the Horizon flight, we have a great opportunity for you. It's on something called a Sherpa vehicle, and that's the brand name that we have for the structure that you'll be flying on. The primary purpose of the structure is to attach multiple satellites onto it. I believe we have 14 satellites on board. It will detach from the Falcon 9 in orbit and then separate all those 14 customers on orbit. But instead of re-entering and burning up right away, it's going to stay on orbit for about 5 years. Part of that is going to be experimental platform for some hosted payloads. 2 of those hosted payloads will be broadcasting position data and other information, making it really easy to track where the Sherpa vehicle is for the 5-year lifetime that it will be on orbit. And then probably within about 6 months of when it starts getting lower and lower in altitude to Earth's atmosphere, the government will be able to predict when and where it will re-enter. And of course, we'll be providing you that information. We won't know exactly until we get closer to the event because it's based off of atmospheric densities, which vary over time. But it's pretty exciting that we'll be able to have you on orbit for this amount of time. So I'd like to show you real quickly before we take questions where your loved ones will be riding in. So Mark.
My apologies. Are you still there?
I think you lost Jeff.
There he is.
All right. Well, this right here is what we're calling our heavenly casket container. So this right here has 40 locations for capsules. Those are the kind of the gray areas in between the golden dowel rods. So this structure will be attached to our vehicle, our Sherpa, which I'll show you in the next slide. And I just want to point out that all of these capsules will be exposed to space. So it's not hidden behind anything. It is exposed both to the sun and to the dark side of the Earth as it passes through its orbital regime. So this was designed with a lot of care by our lead mechanical engineer, Beth Makoka. Next slide, please. So this right here is a picture of Celestis on what we're calling Sherpa Flex #1. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you look between the blue box and the silver box on the left-hand side, that's where Celestis is. And I'll do a zoom-in picture in a minute. But this entire vehicle that you see is what we call the Sherpa. It's a spacecraft carrier. You see that big satellite on the front, and then you see the silver boxes on the side. That's another one of our customers. And those blue boxes hold CubeSats, so they have doors that will open up and eject other satellites into space. So right now, the launch is scheduled for mid-December of 2019, and you'll be in orbit for about 5 years. In my notes, I said a minimum of 3, maximum of 7, just because it's kind of hard to predict the density of the Earth's atmosphere over time. And it will be tracked and cataloged on spacetrack.org, which is the government's website for tracking all orbital objects in space. And then at the end of the mission, it will burn up upon re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Could you go to the next slide, please, Mark? And there's kind of a zoomed-in picture of where Celestis is on the spacecraft. So with that, I'd like to open this up to questions, and I'd be happy to talk about how this mission is going to go, how we do integration. I won't get too much into explaining orbital mechanics, but I'm happy to do a very top-level introduction for people who aren't familiar with it.
Well, I have a few questions that are popping up in our chat room that I'd like to ask. If I can go to Charles first. Charles, I don't know if you mentioned this already or not, but Chris Harder is asking, when exactly is the launch, the Horizon launch? You know how that works.
Good question.
That's a great question. As our head of business development said, 100% of our launches have never launched on the day they were supposed to. That's unfortunately common in this industry, and it's only been exacerbated by the COVID situation. So currently we're looking toward a mid-December launch. We have a specific date in mind that I'm not at liberty to publish right now. The launch window is anywhere from 1 December to the end of January. So SpaceX has said that they're going to launch sometime in that time frame, and a 2-month window is actually pretty narrow in this industry. Every day that we get closer, it becomes more realistic. We have detailed integration schedules already in place. The mission's shaping up very nicely. And SpaceX is one of the few launch vehicle providers that has been launching nearly on schedule throughout the COVID crisis, which gives us a lot of confidence. In fact, I was down at Cape Canaveral just 2 months ago working on a launch from the exact same launch pad.
That's good answer. Whatever I say the same thing, which is whatever date I tell you, you know it won't be that date. Up until the date that it happens. Launches can be, I've seen, I say this a lot, but I've seen launches delayed at less than a second before the engine's light. So, but let me give you all a little bit of assurance, which is we stay very closely in touch with our provider, and they are on top of things. And so as we get nearer and nearer the launch, the window narrows. And we will continue to publicize that. What I always tell people who are planning to attend is don't buy non-refundable tickets, and give yourself some flexibility, because weather, any boats downrange, any number of things, even on the launch pad, can cause a delay. Usually those delays are 24-hour slips, things like that. So it is rocket science, I guess is the best way to put it. But we'll keep you informed. Everything that we know, we immediately provide our clients with that information in a number of ways. First, we post it on our website, celestis.com. Go to the Horizon Flight and you'll see it. Second, we send out an email to all of our primary contacts, and you know who you are. You are listed as the person that is in charge of telling everybody else when we tell you. And then third, we put it on our social media platforms as we get updates. But I want to say that I've been very impressed across a lot of fronts, but with SpaceX's ability to get stuff going pretty regularly these days. And so we can't tell you exactly when it'll go, but we will tell you that it will go, and we will be on it.
Yes, there's two sayings in the space industry. There's a million things need to happen right for a successful launch, and only one thing for it to go bad. And it's more important that we don't rush to failure and we take our time and get this right.
So my famous quote for a gentleman that I had the pleasure of working for 10 years, one of the original Mercury astronauts, Deke Slayton. Deke always said, NASA does not give out any awards for an on-time failure. And that's typical Deke. It's absolutely true. You go when you're ready to go.
All right, Jeff, I got a few questions for you.
Sure.
I'll go to the next one. Number one, to answer Sean DeBell's question. Yes, the range is between December 1 and sometime in January, even though you asked if he said mid-December. Well, target date, I'm assuming, is mid-December, Jeff, right?
Correct. That is our target date as of today.
Okay. Another question. Does Spaceflight have international clients?
Yes, we definitely do. So I mentioned on the one launch that we did a few years ago that had 64 satellites, 17 different countries were represented on that launch. Oh. And not only do we have international customers, and we will have international customers on this mission with you, but we also launch internationally. We're getting ready to deploy a team to New Zealand for a launch, and another team to India when the COVID situation improves over there.
Interesting. Okay, another question. Oh, this question is for me this time. You said that that our clients, okay, are basically going to be exposed to space. Are the capsules themselves vacuum sealed? What kind of guarantees can you give us that there's no mishaps?
Well, I can start out by saying that the hardware we provide, Spaceflight, before it's flown many times, and before we flew it first, we had to do a thermal test, we had to do a vacuum test, we had to do any number of tests to to companies like SpaceX that our capsules wouldn't explode and damage their precious spacecraft. So the answer is yeah.
That sounds like a guarantee to me.
Yeah, great answer.
Jeff, do you know a Jody Sorensen?
I definitely do.
Oh, really? Because she is obviously mentioning that, yes, Jeff is in an RV. Okay. So
Thank you, Jody. I appreciate it.
She blew your cover, okay, and you are, in fact, in an RV. Here's an interesting one. Cheryl Bycheck, hi, Cheryl, says, what are the mission objectives of the specific satellite our loved ones will fly on? What are the mission objectives of the specific satellite our loved ones will fly on?
So the primary objective of the Sherpa is to deploy our customer spacecraft, and our secondary is to provide a platform for our hosted payloads. Our hosted payloads are people who are on our vehicle and will not separate. And this provides a platform for them to do whatever they need to do on orbit. One example, of course, is Celestis. I mentioned that we have at least 2 other customers that will be testing out experimental beacons for long periods of time on orbit. And we can use our platform for other such experiments. In the industry, we call this hosted payloads, where they don't have to build their own satellite to fly in space. They just attach whatever they're doing to our vehicle.
It's a good point, and let me emphasize that we always fly as a non-separated hosted payload. All of our missions to orbit are like that for a couple reasons. One is it's easier to get licensed from the Federal Aviation Administration if we're not deploying hundreds of little anti-satellite devices, which is what those capsules would be if they were released in low Earth orbit going 17,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Hence, it makes a lot of sense not to release them, and it's not likely that anybody would ever approve it. Sometimes people ask us, well, why don't you just release all those capsules? And that's pretty much a non-starter. We wouldn't do it because we're all space geeks here at Celestis and we don't want to damage the space environment. But as I said, the second reason is we are, on all the commercial missions, we have to get a approval from the FAA Office of Commercial Space, which was actually, to give everybody a historical lesson, set up in reaction to our Conestoga 1 flight in 1982, where we were flying with 11 separate federal approvals, and the consolidation of that became the FAA Office of Commercial Space. So it makes it to where you can operate. You can do the kinds of things that we do in space by having a legal and regulatory regime. And we don't want to abuse, nor would we be allowed to, frankly, by releasing all of the capsules. And the other thing, it's pretty cool that it's a group flight. And as Jeff mentioned, first, you'll be able to track that flight real time on our website, celestis.com. We pick up the government's tracking. And if you go there tonight, you'll see that we have 3 satellites in orbit right now. Some of them will be up there for a couple hundred years. Some of them, those were flown before the newest regulations that say you got to come back sooner than that. And secondly, the end point of the mission, as we say, blazing like a shooting star in final tribute, is really cool. The fact that it's basically an ashes to ashes experience for people. We actually, and I'm sure Jeff will be on and his team will be on it, we can predict when the reentry will occur, and we let our clients know when and where that reentry of their loved one has occurred.
Well, that answered Joyce's question. Thank you for that, Charles, because she directed it to Jeff, but I knew this was probably something we can answer. She says, can you explain how we track the flight once it is orbiting the Earth? And you just basically answered that by just going to our website And you can, like Charles said, start today. Start looking at some of the flights that we already have up in orbit, and get a habit into practicing how you're going to use that software, our software, for tracking your loved ones once it's their turn. So you don't have to wait until December. You can go ahead and look at some other ones currently.
As Jeff said, it's the government. It used to be called NORAD. I'm not sure what they call it now, but they track everything in space,
Right.
and for our protection and safety. And we're just one of many objects that gets an assignment. And I've got a big screen in my office, and I like to watch my satellites orbiting the Earth. And hey, it's going over Houston, because we have a couple in polar orbit. So yeah, it's for nerds, it's a great way to spend a few hours.
Yeah, I've watched it myself. It's really something cool. I hope we answered Cheryl's question, but she wants to reconfirm basically. So our loved ones will remain on Sherpa with other paid payloads, if I understand you correctly, until the whole Sherpa burns up on re-entry 3 to 7 years after launch.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. So Cheryl's got that.
By the way, Sherpa is a great name for your spacecraft.
Yeah. How did you come up with the name, or who came up with the name? Does it mean anything in particular?
Well, it definitely does. So Sherpa is a reference to, of course, the Nepalese who would carry mountaineers' equipment up in the Himalayas, and they were called Sherpas.
Oh.
And so that's what this spacecraft is. It is carrying other spacecraft, other payloads to their destination.
Oh,
so we've been using that name for about 6 years within the company. And this is just the latest iteration of the Sherpa. And we have more variants, some that will even have their own propulsive systems that can go to lunar orbit or even beyond in the future.
Right. And that's what I was going to follow up on. You have other names for future flights.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the Sherpa FX, stands for Flex. And then we have extended and long duration variants that are booked for launches in the upcoming years.
Did I read, Jeff, that you have a green propulsion version of Sherpa? Did I read that?
Yes, we do. Yes, so we have a propulsion system that will be flying in, I believe, June of next year. That's based off of a green propulsion system. And in the aerospace industry, that doesn't mean it's made by ethanol. It means a hydrogen peroxide-based system. Yeah. And that's a lot more safe than the traditional hydrazine, which is extremely toxic, corrosive chemicals. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be in contact with hydrogen peroxide for long periods of time, but it's a much safer and very, very fuel-efficient type fuel that will allow us to achieve multiple orbits with just one Sherpa vehicle.
Okay. Catherine, to your question, I'm sure that our team can answer that because we've talked about it. So I don't want to bother these guys with same question again, but that's okay. If you still need to be clarified on it, we'd be glad to do it for you. I'm looking here. Okay, I think we have, folks, if you have any more questions about Celestis and about Jeff's job, please go ahead and start typing, and we'll go ahead and relay that to you. Right now, I'm just seeing the questions on the Facebook page. I don't have access to the YouTube chat room. I don't know why, but I'm not getting any questions from there as of yet, but it will be answered in that YouTube chat room. Obviously, if it's live, it's going to be from our colleagues with Celestis. Jeff, how long have you been where you are now, may I ask?
Yeah, so I've been with Spaceflight for 5 years. Doing a number of missions in India, United States, launching, I think I'm just shy of 100 satellites right now for the company. And before that, I worked at the Kodiak Launch Complex up in Alaska, up there for 8 years, launching rockets in the Great North.
Wow. And where are you right now, may I ask?
I'm just outside of Seattle.
Okay.
So our offices are in downtown Seattle, but we've been, working from home since COVID struck. So I've set up a remote office here just outside of Everett in the town of Snohomish.
Okay. And once everybody comes to some report date, okay, for launch, I'm assuming you will all then come together at Mission Control. When is that supposed to happen prior to launch time?
Yeah, so we'll be starting probably around mid-October with integration of our customers in our Auburn, Washington facility. That's just south of the SeaTac airport. So we'll be bringing customers into a large clean room, and we'll be installing these customers onto the Sherpa spacecraft. And then we'll be doing our system checkouts there. And then in early November, we will ship the whole assembly down to Florida, and our team will go down to Florida and complete integration to the Falcon 9 rocket.
Excellent. And you'll be joining the team as well, right?
Yes, I'll be down there for a portion of the mission. This isn't my mission. One of my coworkers is running it, but I will definitely be part of it.
Will you be there at launch time to meet some of the family members if they are there in attendance, or even meet the crew of Celestis?
It may not be myself, but it will be one of our people we'll have at the launch site to attend.
Oh, now you made me sad. That's okay.
Well, we have great people here on Spaceflight. You don't just need to hear from me.
Well, we're having a good time with you so far. Will Jeff let us know when the payload is handed off to SpaceX? That's a great question. Yeah. Can we go with Charles first? Charles, when do they get it?
We're scheduled to. We're as they say in Texas, wrestling with how we deliver it to them. Right now, I think we're going to put Keith on an airplane and just hand carry.
Wow. Okay.
The capsules out there, and they're due the week of October 12th. So sometime in that week, likely the middle of the week, because tickets are cheaper. We'll send Keith out with, I believe we currently have 114 participants, and I think that'll grow by about maybe 5 more. And you say, how can you have 114 fit into a 40 capsule container? Well, we're flying not 2-inch capsules. We have multiple sizes of capsules. And as a result of that, they stack nicely. You can stack them up into 2-inch sizes, but we'll have, I think, just shy of 120 participants. We had a Japanese client sign up today. And that reminds me that tomorrow is the last day to make a reservation for Horizon.
Oh.
So if you're out there and you're say, hey, I got to be on Sherpa, or I got to be on this mission, I don't want to wait for the next one, or I want my loved one on the board, you need to get in touch with us tomorrow so that we can reserve space for you. But that's a long answer. The short answer is the week of October 12th, we'll be handing them over to Spaceflight. And once that happens, it's in the hands of the experts. Spaceflight will do the configuration, the integration, the attachment, and the integration down Falcon 9. So we become highly interested spectators at that point. But as I tell everyone that they may think it's their rocket, or they may think it's their spacecraft, or they may think but we have hundreds of people around the world that know it's theirs. And for those of you who are on board or have a loved one on board on this mission, you know what I'm talking about. This is a very special event. It's still hard to do. And when it's done, it's an amazing experience and a wonderful closure for people. And so we're in good hands. We choose our providers carefully. Jeff mentioned the Kodiak launch site, and they lost one over the weekend, a startup company in California that I think ultimately will do quite well. Attempted to launch their first rocket, and it ran out of gas partway up and came back and made a nice big flame at Kodiak Island. So we generally choose not to fly on first-time rockets for that reason. And we're really thrilled that we've been able to find Spaceflight, and we have full confidence in their ability. And of course, we've been on Falcon 1, Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy. So we have a lot of confidence in SpaceX's ability to deliver our payload to orbit.
Okay. Since we're on that, and I hate to bring in any bad news, but we need to talk about every occurrence that may happen. Charles, maybe this is in your department, and we know we're dealing with SpaceX, but can you explain to anyone who's been watching for the first time abort procedures? If in fact it does happen, what's the next step?
Well, if we have a launch failure, which is what I think you mean, abort, we just tee it up and they try it again. So, and that happens. In fact, who was it? ULA had a vehicle
after the ignition, after the engine started.
Yeah, a hot fire to board it. And they're getting ready to fly that one again, I guess, in 4 days. So it's amazing the early days of rocketry that they just blow up. That's what would happen. And by the early days, I mean even up till just a few years ago. But the level of sophistication of telemetry and instrumentation and the sensitivity of the systems are such now that they can instantaneously shut down and fly again. So an abort, we just tee it up and fly again. In the event that we don't make it to orbit, then our reflight guarantee kicks in and we fly all of our clients again at no additional cost to them. We've had that happen on 2 of our 17 missions to date, kind of way back. The last one was almost 20 years ago. And, you know, we flew them again and everybody was happy. So, and functionally what happens then is that the canisters become scattered at sea. And so it's just really another way of celebrating your loved one's life. And all of that is abundantly clear in our contracts, and everybody knows that going in. And in reality, most of the clients are like me, which is if it didn't go the first time, strap me on the next one and let's go. Because we really believe that by increasing the market for commercial space and doing unique missions, we're broadening the client base from a few corporations that can afford to build satellites to everybody on the planet can participate in a real mission, and in that way help the overall effort of commercial space to grow. And that's been one of our principles from the beginning, is to try to extend markets to consumer markets, to markets that were not traditional space markets. And our participants are very aware of that and very very understanding in the event of launch delays, launch aborts, and even the occasional failure. No one wants a failure to occur. And as I say, these days, you know, knock on wood, or actually thanks to really smart people that are building we have some pretty reliable machines.
Yeah. Two-part question. Oh, wait a minute. Well, it's interesting. Joyce is asking a question I think you can answer, Charles. And she says, how long after a failure does the reflight get scheduled?
It goes on our next flight. So, for example, Excelsior is the next orbital mission. We're planning at Q3 2022, so it would fly on the next flight.
Okay, and I have a two-part question, so I guess this will go to Jeff and Charles. How did this relationship between Celestis and Spaceflight occur? Okay, that's the first part of the question. And Jeff, I know, and I'm assuming that this is a new experience for you of what it is that we do. What is your impression of this whole venture of granting wishes to a lot of the relatives and individuals that are flying with us?
Well, I'll take the second part of the question first. So first of all, this isn't my experience. On our big mission that we did a few years ago, we also had a similar company. I won't name them; they're a competitor. So we've launched this type of stuff before.
Okay.
But even the last time, this time, it really is an honor. I mean, to think about the trust that not only you but your clients have in us to do this, and to do it with dignity and the solemnity that the occasion requires. I mean, being able to, I just try and imagine some of the loved ones who've passed in my life, being able to see them on orbit. I mean, in this orbit, they go around the Earth every 97 minutes. I mean, what an awesome final resting place. And that's just a really neat experience that you offer to your clients, and I'm glad that we can be a part of it.
That's great. Do you have anyone that you know that has flown with us in the past or plan to in the future?
No one personally, no.
Okay. All right. Cheryl is asking, Excelsior is planned to launch from California, not Florida, correct, Charles?
Not correct.
Okay. So it is Florida.
We have 3 competing providers for Excelsior.
Got it.
We haven't made a determination as to where it will fly from. Most likely Cape Canaveral.
Gotcha.
But let me go back to how we found spaceflight, which is they're hard to avoid. They're the leaders in what they do. And, you know, it's a great, and we plan to fly with them as many times as we can, honestly, because they solve a big problem for us, which is we're this little teeny, relatively inexpensive payload. And I had to convince first Orbital Sciences and then Gwen and Elon at Spaceflight to just deal with us. And, you know, the fact that they were willing to work with us said they thought the missions were cool. Yeah. But we're really in the way of all the important stuff that they do. And none of our clients should take that as anything other than the reality that rockets cost $60 to $100 million. Satellites are sort of in the same range. We're many multiples lower than that. And so the whole notion of aggregating low-cost spacecraft into a single package, that allows spaceflight to deal with the launch providers as a real entity, right? Really important, and to be cared about because they're bringing more than just our little payload to the game. And so from that perspective, it's great to be in a family like spaceflight because we know we'll get the right attention. Spaceflight business is based on dealing with little teeny guys like us. And so as an interface between us and the $100 million rocket guys, it's perfect. And so if, you know, some other companies tried to get going in the same vein as spaceflight earlier, much earlier, and the commercial launch industry just wasn't, and the plethora of small payloads hadn't occurred yet, so they couldn't do it. And some companies are now kind of emulating spaceflight in that they're sending a satellite and hosting multiple payloads on a satellite, sharing other things. But spaceflight is a real gem in my mind. And so we want to support them. We're happy to be a customer of theirs. We see a long-term relationship. We can't wait till they go lunar and interplanetary because people want that service. And we know people want that service. And, you know, we're standing by going, just tell us when we're ready to fly.
Yeah, and to update our viewers, if they did not know, we do have a lunar mission that is upcoming. We, in fact, are sending your loved ones to the moon. So that wasn't a honeymooner's joke, by the way. I just thought about that. But if you want more information about that, you know where to find us. I have one here. Oh, Jeff. Does Jeff know which booster SpaceX is flying for this mission? whether the flight profile will land back at the Cape or on the drone ship. It's kind of too early to tell, right?
Yeah, so SpaceX, we should be getting the trajectory analysis soon from them, and I can answer that in more detail. Likely, we will be flying a flight-proven booster, which is their way of saying it's flown before. And they usually have one of two mission profiles. One is return to base, and the other one is landing on one of their drone ships. Either one is a spectacular way of observing the mission.
Excellent. I think we're about 3 or 4 minutes out. And if anyone wants to slide in a question real quick, go for it. I am watching and waiting. But other than that, how's the air quality in Seattle right now where you are, Jeff?
Air quality is very poor right now.
Oh.
Visibility is down to about half a mile. We're getting all the smoke from the fires that are in Washington State as well as in Oregon. It's just not great now, and we're hoping that a weather system comes through in the next few days to kind of wash out and clean out the air, and we get back to the good Pacific Northwest air and air quality that we're used to.
Wow. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Is it estimated to be a daytime or nighttime mission?
That is a good question. I do not have the exact time of launch yet, but that I'm sure we'll provide it to you and Charles as soon as we have that information.
Okay, sounds good. Nighttime launches are my favorite. They're beautiful, and what depending on the air quality, you can see something truly magnificent from a launch, from a takeoff, shall I say?
I'll pass that on to SpaceX.
Yeah,
yes.
Charles, this one is for you. How many times has Celestis and Spaceflight worked together on this type of flight?
This is our first time, and we're thrilled. Really excellent support from them, and hopefully we'll create a long-term series of flight opportunities with Spaceflight. Again, as I said, they meet all of our needs. I really don't want to go down to Florida and try to tack on a canister that's about this size onto the second stage of a Falcon 9, which is how we've done it in the past. It worked. It was fine, you know. But, it's much more pleasant and easier for us to work with Spaceflight.
Yes, this is our specialty, and we like to say you're not a secondary customer when you fly with Spaceflight. You are a prime customer.
There you go.
Oh, good to hear. And I do understand, Jeff, that you told us before that all of our participants will be exposed, shall I say, to space. So there must be some serious industrial bolts on the underside of that sucker that's holding us down on that satellite, right?
That is true. In fact, for you engineers out there, we do have set screws on the base plate that go up to make sure that there's just enough compression on those capsules to keep them nice and secure. Because anyone who's watched a space movie knows you shake a lot going up. And
right.
That's what testing that Charles mentioned comes into play to ensure that we have high reliability and mission quality for everyone.
How many people are on your team, Jeff? Everybody's responsible for this flight.
Well, right, we have 36 people in total at Spaceflight right now.
Okay.
The number of people working on this mission's about half the companies working on this mission. This is a big launch for us with having a total of 16 customers on the mission, 14 on Sherpa. So a lot of people working really hard, making sure we have mission success.
You must have a great customer suite down in Florida.
A great customer suite, yeah.
We have good relationships with SpaceX. Let's put it that way. A lot of business with them.
Yeah. Well, that is absolutely incredible. And should we not be able to be there? Okay. I think we answered this, but and should we not be able to be there, will it be a good viewing online?
Oh, yeah. Yes. SpaceX covers it. We'll cover it.
Right.
We also will, we're going to have some special stuff for our webcast this time because we know some people will not be able to attend who wanted to. So our memorial service, for example, will be very special, and we'll have events and guests throughout that I think we'll do it right. I know we'll do it right. And certainly the viewing of the launch all the way probably through at least, well, we'll probably get deployment pictures, I would guess.
On the space site, I would imagine, right? You think on the space site, will we get deployment, or are we getting a live feed into Celestis for the deployment?
Well, no, it'll be SpaceX. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, it'll be SpaceX. They'll have live video feeds, assuming that all the customers grant them authority to do that.
Right.
There's definitely the regulations. You need permission from everyone to show them on space. Assuming that happens, you'll see the deployment of Sherpa. You will not, unfortunately, this time see Sherpa deploying customers because we don't have a camera on this variant of the Sherpa. But that's another addition we're going to have in the future.
But we're not going to get deployed, so you wouldn't see us anyway.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, but you have to get a unanimous agreement from all of the customers in order to show deployment. Is that
correct?
Right?
Because you're showing your spacecraft on a public display, and some people would rather keep portions of their spacecraft proprietary.
What are the possibilities of that? What are the possibilities of them actually saying no?
I really don't know. It depends on the camera and who's in the field of view and who the customers are. Some of these cutting edge companies don't want to reveal their secret sauce.
Right. Now, I will say that you'll get back-looking views probably through at least stage burnout. So we'll get all the way to orbit and know we're there. We may not see deployment due to the restrictions.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's definitely information that the families would want to know. I mean, I think that's an exciting part of this launch is there they go. But if
everyone thinks it is, it's just getting those approvals.
Right. So the approvals we'll just have to wait, but I don't want to get anyone's hopes up that all the way through the entire mission, you're going to see them go. And so it's good that they have that information now so that we don't shock them or surprise them later on with something that they were looking forward to seeing.
We should know by mid-October.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Charles, I think that's all the questions that
Well, we're about out of time also. So thanks a bunch for joining us tonight. You really, it's great to hear from the folks that are doing it. I know our clients and our customers are really thrilled with being able to interact with you. So we know you had to take some time out of your day and in your RV to talk to us today. And so thank you very much. And for everybody else out there, we'll be doing this again next month, and you'll hear from us on topic and guests and all that kind of good stuff. And for those of you who tuned in specifically because the Horizon flight was discussed, we'll be in touch with you. You'll know when all the major pre-launch events have occurred, and you're always welcome to get in touch with us, and we'll be responsive. So thanks, Mark, for hosting as always.
Thank you, and Jeff, I just have to say there's something so unscientific about you sitting in an RV right now. So
that's okay.
We have faith. Forever. We have faith in you, buddy. So. This is Mark and Jeff and Charles signing off, ladies and gentlemen. If this is not the end of questions, if you still have questions, please post them on the Facebook page, post them, on Celestis website, and we'll be glad to answer any question that you didn't have time. This broadcast will be shown again. You can go to the YouTube page and revisit this later on and watch it in its entirety, or forward it to someone who couldn't be here for tonight. We are here for you each and every time. So. Thank you guys so much. We'll end this with the video that we showed in the beginning that people who showed up late didn't have a chance to see. Jeff, thank you. We'll be in contact with you soon. It's been great. Thank you, boss. Talk to you soon.
This is the launch conductor in mission control. We pause at this moment in our countdown to remember and honor the lives of each of the participants on the Celestis Memorial Spaceflight. Their presence on this flight signifies a commitment to the opening of the space frontier shared by all of us. We wish the friends and families present today and all those who are with us in spirit all over the world Godspeed, good luck, and our thanks for allowing us to share this very personal time with you today. LCM. 5 vehicles armed, 3, 2, 1, fire.